and the sounds of the wilderness. I would like to thank my iPhone and my microphone for providing that incredibly stellar quality audio for that entire rambling session. Dudes, I have tried so many different things to try to get this freaking audio squared away, and apparently I'm gonna have to keep trying other things. So stay tuned. That entire video is pretty much wrecked by the audio. What can you do? Do I upload it? Do I not? Who cares? Nobody's gonna watch it anyway, so sorry for the shitty audio. Hopefully I can get that sorted out. But hey, what is up, gang? We're out here once again making our way up White Rocks Canyon above the Ute the Ute Native American tribal land town of White Rocks down yonder. And on the way up here, I just was thinking about some stuff and thought I would tell you guys a little story about my time in the military service. I guess the reason why I thought about it is because I happen to have a couple of my guns here where I'm considering maybe going up here and doing a little bit of shooting and stuff. And whenever I think about guns, I think about my only experience with guns is, my time in the Army. So it always brings back thoughts and memories and whatnot. So as we cruise on up here towards the end of the road, I thought I'd tell you some thoughts I had on military service. And like I said before, hopefully the footage isn't total garbage because I don't have my Hero 7 Black with image stabilization, so there's a good chance all of this footage is generally going to be useless anyway. But, oh man, I've been out of the Army for 10 years now. Got out in 2010, it's now 2020. And I did spend 10 years active duty Army. In Army aviation, which is, the best place to be in the Army if you ask me and any of my friends, of course. But the longer I spend away from my days in the Army, the more I think back and long for those days of when I was in the military. When I was a much younger man, I was in my 20s, up until about 30 when I got out. You're young at that point in your life. You're really inexperienced, very young, and everything's coming at you. And during my time, with the 2 tours overseas to Iraq, there was a lot of really big stuff that happened. A lot of big stuff was going on in my life, in my personal life, with my wife and my young kids, personally. But there was also just a lot of big stuff going on at the time. So in your 20s, when you're trying to process all this and grow and develop, you don't realize how young you are. You just feel like anyway. A lot of stuff happened during that period of time in my life, and I guess what I'm saying is, looking back, I feel like I took it for granted in a lot of ways. It seemed like it would last forever, and it seemed like you kind of look at some of the parts of the aspects that suck. Embrace the suck. The suck factor was pretty high in a lot of that period of time. But with as much things as kind of were hardships and challenges, there were equal amounts of totally awesome experiences. Got a little bee inside the cab of the truck here. Get out, little buddy. And keep that stinger in. Hopefully he can figure his way out. This is going to be a long rambling video. The point I really want to circle back to and get at is that it's definitely different being in the civilian world, as anyone would imagine or expect. It's different in terms of the friends, the acquaintances, and the co-workers that I have had. It's very different. So I want to come back to that before the end of this. And what I've learned outside is managing expectations. Expectations of what you think and what you believe and what you have come accustomed to with how you think people should behave and how people should, what you perceive, how they should interact with you, interact with each other. You learn early on in the military about common customs and courtesies. You're learning about drill and ceremony, marching, how to march, how to function, but you also just basically learn a lot about customs and courtesies, which ultimately, essentially is, when to salute, how to render proper respects to people, and just how to interact with folks, your superiors and your subordinates. So that is something that you can't expect civilians to comprehend or understand or have any experience with. But that's a huge difference. Common customs and courtesies. So that has been a big culture shock that has taken me many years to come to terms with. So, talking back on the times of when I was in the Army, the bond that you make with the people that you work with, you're not going to like all the people you work with. There's a handful of people over the time of my military service that I can probably count on one hand, people that were complete and total pains in my ass for one reason or another, trying to make life difficult for me for one reason or another. But in the end, ultimately, even those folks had, great value and totally worthwhile people for sure. But what you do, what you experience is you basically have to be to formation at 6:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, whatever it is. You better not be late. You got to be standing in PT formation for physical training, physical exercise, PE, PT. And that's the first formation of the day. Everyone gets accountability. You render honors to the flag, that they raise the flag every single morning. And man, all the different Army bases that I worked at or was assigned to, the post flag would be raised and they would fire off the cannons every morning. Just total patriotic, freaking awesome experience. Of course, at the time, it's kind of a pain in the butt, but you, man, look at this. This is just incredible. But then, shortly after formation, you do PT. And what you do a lot of is running. Of course, you do all your push-ups and sit-ups and all that business, but you do a lot of running. And occasionally you do group runs or company runs or battalion runs or brigade runs or post-wide, Army base-wide runs up and down the boulevards, and there's just formation after formation carrying their guidons, and the battalions and the brigades and the divisions have huge guidons, with all their streamers hanging off of the post. So people take turns running with the guidons and the flags, and they'll be running up front, and all the companies will have all their guidons and the company commanders, and then the whole battalion will be behind them, talking 400 or 500 people running in formation together. And then the guidon bearers will generally stoke up, get everybody excited, and they'll leave the front of the pack of the formation, run down along the one side, get behind the formation, and come running up the other side. And everybody's chanting and singing cadence, and oh my God, you get freaking stoked and you get psyched up. And you would do that even if it's just a company run with your company guide on. That was one of my first experiences in the Army, actually, my very first. Anyway, I was a guide on bear early on when I was a private E1, E2. Give you an opportunity to show your mettle a little bit and run with the guide on. It's pretty cool. And so from early on, you know, you're developing a bond with these people and you don't even realize it. You're developing a bond during basic training. You're developing a bond during morning formations. And then, of course, usually the way it works is first day of the week, you have motor pool opens up. So everybody shows up after PT at the 9 o'clock. You go home, take a shower, back to the barracks, wherever. Suit up into your battle dress uniform, BDU's camo uniform. And then you show up, everybody shows up on Monday morning at the motor pool so everybody can inspect the Hummers, the Humvees, all their equipment, make sure all the oil changes are good. So it's another formation at 9 o'clock there. And then once you're done with that, everybody kind of disperses back to the hangar, and then you start working on your aircraft maintenance and whatnot. And you do that throughout the week. And then you have a closeout formation on Friday afternoon. And when you're in the cavalry, 1st Cavalry Division, or the Armored Cavalry Regiments, you wear your Stetson, your cavalry hat, and battalion commander comes out and gives a big safety briefing. Everybody be safe, don't do any drinking and driving, and we want to see you all back here after the weekend. Go have a good weekend, etc. And that's how it goes, week by week by week when you're in garrison, unless you're training up for your deployment or whatever, what have you. So then you go do field training exercises, which will last sometimes 3 or 4 days, or sometimes a week. I think the longest I ever did a field training exercise was 2 weeks on Fort Hood. And beyond that, we would deploy to the National Training Center in Fort Irwin, California, outside of Barstow, middle of the freaking desert, blazing hot in the summer, to simulate, desert operations. And it's pretty effective. I think the longest trip I did out there was 45 days, something like that. So everybody loads up, you load up all your Hummers and all your equipment, all your refuel trucks and everything onto the railhead at Fort Hood or your Army base. The railhead, you drive them up on the ramps onto the trained rail cars, which is pretty wild because, they line up these train cars 30, 40 long, and of course they've got a little bridge in between each one. And so railhead days are pretty fun. You gotta get all your shit on, and then you transport it out there. You deploy it out there, you fly your aircraft, or you fly on an airplane, however you get out there. And everybody's got to get all your equipment off the rail yard, and hopefully nobody gets freaking injured, because, you got trucks trying to get... And these freaking little bridges, they're chained down. Everybody has to try to keep an eye on, so that one of them don't buck the freaking little bridge across, and it falls, and then the whole freaking truck collapses into the space in between the rail cars. But anyways, field training exercise. So you go through all these exercises, and you're living with your bros and your sisters. You're living with them. When you leave the house on these field training exercises, it's 24 hours a day. You're doing PT, and so you just develop a bond that you cannot expect your coworkers or even your friends or your acquaintances to have any comprehension of what it's like of loyalty and the value of friendship and the value of being able to lean on and depend on each other, because you're going to be going through hardships. And we haven't even begun to talk about when you actually deploy over to the combat situation. And you can be assured that in those instances, when you have some close calls or incoming rounds or all sorts of scenarios, that just they forge you and they bond you together with your brothers and sisters in arms that you can't compare. Oh shit! That bee, Jesus! Felt like that freaking bee just stung me. No, I don't think the bee stung me. Just pinched myself. Here we are, Paradise Creek. Pretty freaking sweet. I'm gonna have to roll that window up. Squeaking is too bad. So, this is a long story to just make the point that I have a lot of friends. A few of my friends that I associate with still are in the military still, or got out of the military and live nearby me, and we associate occasionally. But a lot of the friends that I've made outside of the Army are former Army guys or former military guys. And as one would expect, those are the dudes that I tend to bond with the most closely. And even if we didn't even serve together, and even if their service was 10 years, 20 years before mine or whatever, somehow there's just this understanding, this common understanding of, I can't really put my finger on it, but it's just different. And so I think that with some introspection, that I know I come across as an asshole sometimes to my friends. I mean, there's a whole group of friends that I have that I go do some pretty awesome stuff with, that I just have kind of an abrasive, maybe an abrasive personality. I'm just really forward, and if something's fucked up, I'm going to tell you. And I'm going to call them out on it. And I'm going to just kind of, I don't know, it's just in my nature, both before the military and after the military, just that, hey, see something that's like, why is that the way it is? You just call it out. Hey, why is that the way? What are you doing? Why is that the way it is? What are we doing? And I find that certain groups of my friends find that I'm just too forward with stuff like that. I don't know. So I come across as an asshole, and I just think it's a strong personality, which isn't always the case. I mean, a lot of times I'm pretty subdued and just kind of casual and whatnot, but some of my friends, man, I can tell that they just are turned off and put off by my forwardness and abrasiveness. And so I apologize for that. Probably none of them are even watching this video. But if the few of you that are, I'm sorry. I try to tone it down as best I can. And most importantly, I mean no harm by it. So I don't know. So that covers mostly that aspect of it. Just if you're getting ready to get out of the military, maybe you're a younger guy, or if you're an older guy, and you've probably experienced the same thing. It's nothing against my friends that aren't former military or aren't former assholes or whatever. It's nothing against them. It's just, it's an observation that I can't expect them to, understand me as well as some of my brothers in arms do and would. So that's fair. So just to wrap that part up, it's just the longer I spend away, like last night, for example, I was doing the night shift, and as I was doing my nightly duties, the TV is running next to me in the crew room, and one of the folks I worked with was flipping through the channels trying to get off of the news cycle, and I look over, and on the guy is Full Metal Jacket, and I was like, oh shoot, Full Metal Jacket, and of course we turned it on. And there's a number of movies that if I'm flipping through channels, I am absolutely powerless to change channel. Some of them that come to mind are Office Space, some of the classics, and Full Metal Jacket is one of them. It does not matter how many times I've seen this movie, it's phenomenal. I love it. So I was like stoked. I was like, Full Metal Jacket, turn it on. He turns it on, and it happened to be the exact scene when, the drill instructor is in the barracks room, laying into every one of the trainees, and then the scene went on, and I'm just sitting there like kind of laughing and chuckling and getting a total kick out of it. Meanwhile, the dude who's on my crew, yeah, he's somewhat amused by it, but it's it doesn't mean as much to him as it does to me. And after 5 or 6 minutes of that, I look over and I'm like, "Were you in the military?" He's like, "No, I wasn't." And most of my colleagues that I work with on my crews are usually always have a nurse on board, but flight nurse. We always have a flight nurse on board, and they are some of the most incredible. Every time I work with these people, I am in absolute awe of what they do. We don't even have to go do a mission. They just have this air about them that they are just absolute badasses that can handle every and any scenario that we encounter and save people's lives. Blows my mind. Flight nurses are next level people, and then the other people that I work with are my flight paramedics. And 95% of them probably are firemen. They double as firemen, and flight paramedics. They double as firemen at their home stations and whatnot here in Utah. And absolute top shelf people. I can't even believe that I get to work with them. Blows me away. So they're living another experience at the fire station. Nurses work together. They probably live in their own culture of the similar stuff what I was talking about before in the military culture. But anyway, I asked him, and no, I haven't been in the military. And he's like, "Yeah, there was a time when I really liked this movie a lot. I watched it all the time." And I was like, "Yeah, well, I still watch it all the time." But before he flipped the channel away, the scene fades into when they're climbing up the obstacle course, and the big giant red sunset is off in the distance, lined up perfectly through the obstacle course. And I look back on and I think about my time in basic training and Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And they have a huge obstacle course, and all the road marches we did, and all the gunnery ranges, and it was incredible. And I just get nostalgic and think back, oh man, it was such a good time. Because that's what happens in life. As you get older, you forget about all the suck factors, and all the shitty downsides of what you went through, and you remember the good stuff. And that's universal, whether it's, hopefully when you're raising your kids, they don't look back on all the sucky hard times. They look back on all the good times and all the good times you experienced. And that's no different from my time in the military. And I'm a bit envious of my friends that stayed in and made a career out of it and get to retire. But I have my reasons for why I did not stay in, and those reasons are vast and a story for another time. This is insane. Oh man, if I could just spot some fish down in there. I did not bring any fishing gear on this trip out to work because the waters are raging so strongly that it was like, Let me let those waters tame down a little bit, and then over the next couple times I'll always bring my fishing gear. But I am a little bit envious of my friends who stayed in, but it was really, I had my reasons for getting out, and I don't have any regrets for getting out. I've experienced a lot of incredible things and seen a lot of parts of the world that I never would have gotten to see, and most importantly, my kids got to become the kids and the adults that they've grown into, formed at home with family in Utah, doing the recreational things that we were supposed to do. They've grown into the people that they were supposed to be outside of the military family that we would have been. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. And it's been amazing watching them grow and turn into the people that they have. So that is it for today's rambling session of my time in the service and dealing with folks outside of the service. So, hey, if you were ever in the service, leave a comment down below. Tell me what you thought about this, and if you can relate, or if you're still in the service, or if you're thinking about going to service, you know, any questions or anything you want to talk about. Let's chat it up. So let's get up here and probably make some coffee again. See you on the next one. Yeah, enjoying a cup of coffee. What a glorious day. Look at this freaking view of this spot up there. Little cliff and that gigantic tree up there. Wow. I am a little bit bummed out about the blue marks for probably they're going to cut these trees down. Why? This is the only kind of non-improved campsite that I saw on this road. You know, you don't have to pay or register or anything like that. And of course the forestry people have to come up here and harvest these trees. Really? And in the meantime, until they get around to it, spray paint the shit out of them, which obviously they've done times past and recently. It's like, thanks folks, thank you. I'm gonna go try to ride this bike in Dry Fork Canyon today after we get a cup of joe. So that should be fun. See you later.